Graham again, working with you on a second round of process improvements. Here we're going to look at psychology matters, as well as thinking about how to, whether variance is going to be something we want to play with in this case. So, with regard to the psychology matters, perhaps there are a couple big items. One would be the well-being that we've already discussed at length and having sort of some penalty tone for the patients. But is there a way to sort of like change something in the process that helps out provide a patient well-being? But you'll notice when we run this thing, when you just run it slowly so we can observe this, the folks face increasing flow times through the day. So let's just run this just fast enough so we can observe how these bars pop up in these histograms here. So I'm going to speed it up about 10 times. Okay, so 130, 138, 138, 136. The next one was actually lower. Okay, so this one was lower. This one here was 152. So what I wanted to experiment with is I was changing the cadence, and there was a final one here that was pretty slow. And the seventh person is sort of stuck in surgery at the end of the day. So let's see if we can change the cadence on this thing. So instead of bringing them, so the flow times are in the ballpark of 130. So instead of bringing them in every 90 minutes, what I'm going to try and do is just slow that down. So let's maybe make it 110 minutes. Now, I don't want to starve the process, but I'm trying to save 20 minutes on the flow time. Let's see if this works out. Okay, need to kill that log file again. So the hope is just, to shorten the flow time of patients, essentially. So here I'm getting flow times of 137, 142, 144, 149. It's not clear I'm actually getting a win here. 138, 144. So maybe I'm not actually making a difference, but this is sort of a feature you can control. If the average flow times are in the ballpark of 140, it doesn't make sense to release them faster. So maybe I'm getting, so I see the last flow time is 150 here, and I'm releasing these or scheduling these patients to come in roughly every 110 minutes now. So it seems, that the arrival cadence is sort of like matching the departure cadence, but you do need to be careful about starting the process. All right, so I'll leave the psychology matters piece for the patients alone. On the provider side, managing the utilization, I think, is the primary play. And also want to talk a little bit about the variance. So there isn't a whole lot of variance in this workflow, but you may find that you can get a small number of improvements by arguing for things like maybe applying Lean Six Sigma to the surgical process. If you can find revised surgical times, by all means, incorporate those process innovations. And so I want to go into my simulation main here and just look at this. So the standard deviation is only eight minutes out of 100-minute surgery. And registration standard deviation is low. The sedation standard deviation is also pretty low. So, just small improvements may, bring small improvements in things like the utilizations and the flow times, but it doesn't seem like there is anything sort of really out of hand on the variance side. One idea that sort of comes up is to maybe have dedicate track A to sort of like the lower BMI patients and track B to heavier BMI patients with possible special lifts and so forth for the most obese patients. And I do have a little spreadsheet that lays out how that may look. So I want to just run this by you. I will share this um, in the comments. So here's what the original information from Paul's paper is. Here the procedure is. These are the median times in Paul's paper. These are the percentages of each of those BMI categories. And so I created a weighted mean and standard deviation. One possibility is we separate out the low BMI folks, so that here I've taken all the low BMI folks, so you can see that I have to in fact go up to into the obese category even, to the tune of 5% to get up to 50%. So instead of like pooling all the patients and disregarding what their BMI is, now you're sorting the patients by BMI. So the lower BMI patients, and maybe a few obese folks, are going to go through track A, and the rest through track B. And so I compute revised means and standard deviations, and here they are. So 97.62, 678. So let's just plug that in. So 97.62. I'll just write these down. It's just 79. And then on the heavy BMI side, we've got 103. So here they are. 40% come from obese category, 10% morbidly obese, 13.42. Okay, so plug that in. So all you need to do is just lower this one. So, the idea would be that, you got faster throughput. So maybe you can get the seventh surgery out of track A, but not compromise B. How's that? That's the sort of the line of thinking here. So this one is also lower standard deviation, 679. So it's both lower times and less variable times as the BMI drops. So 103.8 and 1342. And let's run it. So you really want to get consistent, surgery counts. I think we've added we've got 6 ORs in here, and it really doesn't seem like that extra OR is helping all that much. So maybe we just don't have the staff to sort of really exploit it. We'll have a look at what that utilization on the OR pool is. To completion here. It's only got 5 each. Despite having all these surgeons, I've got 3 anesthesiologists. My OR pool is only 46% utilized. Painful. Surgeons, maybe I need to, my PA pool, although I've got 2 people here, is just not utilized at all. So not really getting the counts that I'm interested in here. You see the revenue is only 44. I'll run this again. 5 and 5. Well, there could also be some concerns about lumping together all the high BMI folks. They may notice that they're being sort of lumped together, and that could be a source of social media dissatisfaction. So leave you to deliberate that. But I wasn't getting my surgical counts, and my revenue seems to have dropped. It's not clear to me immediately, unless you find some substantial wins, maybe with reduction of the mean and the standard deviation for the surgical times based on more recent published data that you're easily going to get that 7th surgery. Okay, so try to summarize some of the changes. You can add and pull ORs. You can add dedicated anesthesiologists and surgeons. You can also bring in folks into the CRNA pool or the PA pool. So a lot of these moves are utilization and pooling based. We also did look at changing the cadence of arrivals to the surgical workflow. And then we thought about, maybe doing something with the variance, but discovered that variances are generally pretty low throughout the workflow, so not clear we're going to get substantial wins out of that. You'd want to have sort of a reasoned, manually created solution to replace the current workflow. And we're also going to investigate in the next clip the optimization solutions and see what we think about that as a possible digital twin to sort of supplant human intervention in these scenario plannings.